Death Club.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Danny here. Today I'm talking to you about Please Go Home, Akutsu-san. So Please Go Home, Akutsu-san is written and drawn by Taichi Nagaoka, and this is published over in Young Ace Up magazine. I believe this is a weekly one, and this started back in July of 2019, currently ongoing. So let's start this off, man. This stars our main character, Oyama, your typical male high school student. A little nervous with the ladies, as you would expect, and it doesn't help that he sits next to Akutsu-san, who is a delinquent girl. Makes a lot of noise, sleeps, slacks off in schoolwork, just hangs out with her friends, and then one day as he's going home to his apartment, he bumps into her, lets herself in, of course, and realizes that, hey, this guy lives by himself. Well then, this is the new spot where I am going to hang out at. And that starts off the series where we have Akutsu hanging out in Oyama's room, and that leads to various things, which is mainly her either hanging around playing games, reading manga, doing some ecchi stuff to catch his reactions as she finds it hilarious, bullies him, wrestles, all that kind of stuff. And every now and then, at least for the beginning stuff, some wholesome content. The reason I got into this series was because I read something a while back and I really liked it. The writing was good and you don't really see the female delinquent come about. And even if you do, you don't get to see the more wholesome side of the characters. And I thought, okay, you know what? Let me do some research. I'm diving into the internet. Are there any series that is like this premise? And this series popped up. Along with a bunch of others that maybe we'll go through later down the line in the list. As I was getting ready to read the next manga for the reviews, I saw this one pop up on my app, and I thought, you know what, let me just see what it is, because I'm going in blind for majority of these mangas. I just grabbed this one because it was on a recommendation list for this type of subgenre that I'm looking for. And I'm checking it out, and of course the first thing you notice is that this is a 4-koma style series. What does that mean? Like we said in the Komi-san review, and I believe a different series as well, very minimal with the page count, and it's all mainly about just our characters doing one thing, and then the next chapter it's a completely different situation. A slice of life thing, mainly for comedic purposes, right? Like there is some humor in Komi-san in those early chapters, dealing with her situation. And here it's there as well, mainly for the ecchi content, I guess. Yeah, just her hanging out in his room and the way she's dressed, the way she's drawn, right? That's what you're really here for. And I gotta say, I got hooked. Part of it does have to do with the chapters being so short. The average is about 6 pages. So I kept reading more and more chapters just to see like, okay, is this something I'm really going to be interested in? And the next thing you know, I'm diving into the series and said, okay, this is moving up on the list. This is the next thing we're talking about. For the most part, it is what I said. A lot of situational stuff's going on with Akutsu teasing Oyama most of the time. But then we get a lot of moments with her being wholesome. And that stuff is really great. I think Akutsu and Oyama are solid characters. They play off of each other very well. And every now and then there will be supporting cast members, whether it's Akutsu's friends who show up maybe 3 chapters. But they do the things that they are needed for, and it's perfect. You know, they don't overstay their welcome. And then eventually there is the landlady's daughter over at Oyama's apartment, and she forces herself into the plot by being supportive of Oyama and Akutsu's relationship. As we get further into the series, their bonds grow deeper. Oyama in particular, it's mainly him being annoyed at Akutsu-san because he's like, look, it's nice seeing you do these things, but you come here almost every day, and it does get annoying. He gets flustered, what have you. But then eventually, he grows to understand Akutsu more and sort of gets used to her being there all the time. Therefore, he gets desensitized by all the things that she's doing to rile him up, and that's where she gets her enjoyment. So when that's kind of going away, Akutsu on her end is trying her best, but then it's at these moments where she starts thinking a little too much. She gets conscious about the situation they're in, and then eventually she also develops her own feelings. So it's going the typical rom-com route when it comes to manga, at least for Akutsu-san, with Oyama Nagaoka is holding back. And I think that just really has to do with Oyama as a character, how level-headed he can be. But he can also get into the heat of the moments with some of these chapters where it kind of breaks his logic, but it's there for the comedic stuff, and he's also a caring person, so it all balances out at the end of the day. If you're gonna read this series, you have to binge it, I think, because the one problem this series has is the structure. I mentioned Komi-san earlier, and that started off in the same situation, a 4-koma style series, and then once it gained popularity, it started to dive deeper into the story. Let's actually get some character arcs going on, and as a result of that, we got the standard page count, and that made the series even better. And then sure, every now and then there's one-offs where it'll be just 4 pages of some random stuff, and those are usually for breaks in between big moments in the series. While we get ready for the next step of where Komi-san's leading, look at the current arc right now of what's going on in Komi-san. The big decision happened, and we had to go through a lot of short chapters, mainly because we have to get through the supporting cast to get their thoughts on the situation. And here it's very similar, right? Once we got more traction, this got more popular, I'm assuming we're diving into arcs, right? Up to 3 chapters so far, it seems. And those arcs, I think, are the best of the series. As we're playing this cat and mouse game with Oyama and Akutsu-san about their relationship, will they, won't they kind of thing is always up in the air. And the only one that questions it right now is Akutsu-san. So that's where we're really getting the content is out of her. And then every now and then Oyama will come in and do some pretty nice stuff. And will really catch Akutsu off guard. And that is the current dynamic between them. And it's good. It really shows the growth between those two characters over the course of this series. The problem lies in the page count. It did not increase. It stayed at around 6 to 7 pages. When it's not a serious arc that can go on for more than 2 or 3 chapters, the pacing is so fast. After I caught up, and then, hey, there's a new chapter, let me go read it. I was looking forward to it. And then I went through it, and it just happened so fast. And then it was over. I was like, oh no. Every week I'm going to sit here and just read something that's going by so fast when things are actually moving and you want the plot to move forward. Other than the potential milking Nagaoka is doing with the series, it's still just them hanging out in his room. They're still doing the same shenanigans, except Akutsu's more conscious than Oyama now. Right? The tables have turned, and maybe that's why it's taking so long, just to see the other side a little bit longer before we move on to the next big step of the series. But again, with them keeping the short chapter count, it's not really helping the series. Like, it was so crazy to me where we catch up almost at 80 chapters, and then we have the announcement for volume 3. And these are standard size volumes, right? So when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Only 3 volumes and we have so many chapters, but it's because the page count is incredibly small. If there's one thing I would fix about the series is more pages per chapter, just so that way we could get more into what's going on. And then one final thought on the page count, it might just be because of the limitation that we're set in. It's an interesting premise of having a delinquent high school girl hang out in a timid high school boy's room and all the things that ensue in there. That stuff's fun, but we're trapped in this space. There's really not a lot you can go off of. When we hit those moments where things get serious or more consideration into this relationship is considered, it's hard to really do anything else, I guess. Right? And, there was one chapter where we saw them at school. And I thought that was refreshing because we're in a new scenario and we actually get to see them interact outside that room, because it becomes that relationship to where, because they're in Oyama's room, they both act a certain way, but they don't act like that in public. They don't even talk at school. They're not considered friends to their peers and classmates. So by having them in the classroom, it's a great change of pace, and I just really wish we had more of that as well. Maybe they go to the grocery store or something. Maybe they just meet up randomly somewhere, and then they walk back to his place. Or even dive more into these characters outside of themselves. With Oyama, for instance, he lives by himself, so where's the arc where his parents show up? Akutsu-san is here all the time. What's her situation at home? You go see that. Nagaoka can do it, but he is still limited by the amount of pages per chapter. That's just really the biggest thing for me, is how short these are, because I was a little disappointed when I read the latest chapter after catching up. It's like, oh man, now I have to wait another week to see if maybe something's going to happen or we're still just doing the same thing. So let's talk about the art real quick. Nagaoka does a pretty fine job for what this series is. Akutsu's design, I think, is pretty good, the way her hair is drawn. And I mean, that's really all you could say. There are some key highlights in a few chapters here and there, and that's mainly with Akutsu's reactions and just how he draws her face, and like you could really tell what she's thinking and feeling at that moment when it comes to Oyama, of course. And yeah, aside from all that, just standard slice of life art style. So yeah, guys, solid series overall, and that is pretty much all I have to say about Please Go Home Akutsu-san. Have you guys checked this out? Would love to hear your thoughts. You can go ahead and send an email to unversedpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll bring those up on the next episode as always. And then you could follow us on social media at unversedpodcast anywhere you go. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Need some gas that I can borrow. Skip this sorrow, switching lanes. Won't you just stay with me? Carpe diem, stay up late with me. If you're leaving, well, else say la vie, baby. I just want you for the night.
Roll around in dust with the demons. We built a little city, baby. Trust in the cement. Fuck love, it's a need, base or instinct to crush to use. Basically, I'm saying that I really fuck with you, but I'm not the tuba. I never had a cauldron, I never had a spoon, but you round me like hula hoop. I'm ballin', bitch, I'm ballin'. I'm hella broken, I'm ballin', I'm really ballin'. Where the smoke, where the gas, where the Mary Jane at? Where I'm from, it's a joke, I don't care to play that. But it's not so bad, cause you was here too. Watch your past, the shit is coming for you. Seeing, doing's doing, being's being. Carpe diem, oh, that's EMO. Everything is nothing, so there ain't no point in being slow. It's 365 days till the world ends. I wanna feel my skin melt, laying by my girlfriend. She say, I'ma write the screenplay. You make me feel like Lil Wayne felt on Go DJ. I sell my soul on eBay to make you feel special. I captured all your angels, you've been tugging on my devils. Just stay with me. Fuck around your spirits, what I aim to be. It's plain to see you're lame, so baby be lame with me. If only I could make you see, but freeze up. It's Mortal Kombat 2 with the quarter circle, wouldn't wanna be. It's point blank, Lake Placid on acid. A million locations, I'ma choose this little mattress though.